Frontier Opening Bell. Welcome to the show. I'm Temple Ashajo. We've got Ali Kansacho, the founder of Rich Frontiers Management in Kenya, joining us. Good morning, Ali. Thank you for coming through. Bosun Amofaye, our executive editor here at Frontier Africa Reports. Thank you for coming through this morning as well. Let's look at the market from how they finished off last week. Nigerian exchange was positive by 1.20% on a week-to-date basis. The BRVM stock exchange at 155.39 points was also positive on Friday, specifically by 23 basis points. The Egyptian stock exchange at 10,122.44 points, positive on Sunday by 67 basis points. The Nairobi Stock Exchange was down 63 basis points on Friday, and the Johannesburg Stock Exchange managed to close positive on Friday by 0.05%. Let's look at the Eastern African markets headlines, where Airtel full year earnings is out. Underlying revenue is up by about 20%. Of course, Nigeria is 40%, East Africa 36%, Francophone markets is positive by 25%. The mobile revenue is also positive by 17.6%. Mobile money also positive by 35%. Final dividend of some $2.50-something to be paid to shareholders. OPEC revises global economic forecast up to 5.5% for 2021. Steel billionaire cancels 5 billion shillings bids to revive Mumia's Sugar. Struggling state-owned company Sony Sugar shutting today for 6 weeks maintenance time. Let's start with you, getting your thoughts on this East African headlines, Ali.
Yes, good morning, Temple. Good to speak to you again. Let me first start with Airtel Africa. Those numbers were actually better than I expected. I think they surprised the market to the upside. Airtel Africa has been knitting together quite a diverse portfolio of mobile businesses across the continent. And in the last, I would say, 12 to 18 months, we've seen this portfolio start to gain significant traction. So I think the underlying revenue gain of 19.4% was better than respectable. Mobile money up 35%, that's significant. And mobile revenues up 17.6%, significant also. I think when I compare that mobile revenue number to Safaricom, it's clear to me that they've got a better ARPU than some of their competitors in that space. They are running an asset-light business. I saw an announcement this morning that they're going to be offloading the towers in Tanzania. So it's an interesting business that they're running here, very asset-light. They're looking also to spin out the mobile money business. They've taken in some shareholders into that as well. So overall, I would have thought Mr. Mittal will be quite happy about how things are progressing. Here in Kenya, Airtel faces a very fierce competitor and has not been that successful, but clearly in other parts, they're doing rather well. So congratulations to them, frankly. They've really they've begun to perform significantly better than the historical performance. OPEC revising global economic forecast up 5.5% for 2021. I think that's in line with the OECD's recent uplift as well. Quite a lot of optimism around about global growth now. However, getting back to where we were pre-pandemic, will take a bit longer. We're bouncing, as it were, from a lower base. But obviously, the oil price has been very perky of late. I think WTI got pretty close now to $70 a barrel. We're moving significantly. This will be a big plus for oil-producing nations. However, oil importers are beginning to see this feed through into inflation, and it poses risks for them. The story about the steel billionaire, this is Mr. Devki. A very interesting backstory. Mr. Devki comes from the fastest growing city in East Africa, which is Nakuru, where he actually was looking after a temple, and he started from there. And he's built up this tremendous empire. spanning steel and many other interests. And basically, he'd gone in with an offer to the receiver for Mumias sugar, which has perennially needed a bailout nearly every single year. And unfortunately, a lot of folks are basically stalling his takeover. Look, you know, it's been a bit of a cash cow for all kinds of people, and those folks are notoriously difficult to remove. You know, I would have thought this is the best thing for the business and for the farmers who have suffered year in, year out with the uncertainty around Mumias. Sony Sugar is another state-owned sugar business, and that's shutting today for 6 weeks maintenance. But, you know, they're all struggling. Kenya has a big sugar deficit. There is a significant opportunity, but the problem, in part, has been the mismanagement of these sugar companies, and also we have very poor production in sugar per hectare. If you compare it with the global norm, we're way below average, about 50 to 60% in terms of our acreage production for sugar, which is the other challenge. But, you know, it would be good to see, I would certainly support Mr. Defke if he manages to thread this needle.
Thank you very much, Ali. From what you just ended on, the points you just ended on now, it looks like Africa generally will have an issue managing our sugar plantations and factories or production companies, because it's the same thing that Nigeria is just currently trying to address. And Boston, would you like to hone in on that as well?
Sugar business is, we're trying to get our, you know, it's just quite a very messy way how we just can't get our acts together around industrialization, using very cheap natural raw materials like sugar that grows virtually everywhere, even if you don't really plant it that much, naturally speaking, in a manner of speaking. And we've not really been able to harvest it and leverage it into production of honey. And you can use part of it for ethanol, for biofuel as well. So we were talked all about this very grandiosely during the Aganga's tenure as the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment. I had a few sessions, number of sessions with the National Sugar Council Managing Director who was in office then. There were a number of private sector engagements during the Jonathan's administration to get it. A few steps were made. Now, Dangote Flour Mills is doing about additional $300,000 or $300 million deal with Nasarawa State up north a little bit to Nigeria. We hope that really happens. Boa Cement is going into the same sugar business very fast and furious. We hope that will help us reduce very significantly our size of imported sugar, get the quality we need, create the jobs locally. And the more farms that will open up, the better for security, the better for everyone in a massive production scale. We need mass agricultural production to clear up a whole lot of land that these bandits and kidnappers and others are hiding around, as it were. Agriculture, a massive agriculture based on technology, will help you cultivate hundreds of thousands of hectares of land, Temple. And you will clear up the whole space. Then there'll be little space for anyone to just hang around and kidnap and just run into the bush.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Bosun. Thanks a great deal for that comment there. We know that Dangote has got his tentacles spread across Africa in terms of cement. Hope this won't make him start looking at all the other sugar factories and industries all across Africa, because as you know, Bosun, he just bought over Savannah Sugar, I think sometimes last year, thereabouts. Well, let's move on to the Western and Nigerian markets headlines, where Nigeria's Twitter ban rattles internet network businesses over the weekend. FMDQ imports and export windows total down by 59.6% weekly to $535.8 million. Forwards markets, you have the FX market sides there being flat at 1 month to 6 months, but 1 year is down by 0.1%. Ghana raises daily minimum wage by 6% to 12 cedis 53 pesos. In Ghana, still, you have total gold production for last year declining by 4.8% to 2.8 million ounces. That's for the year 2020. Joshua Debisi from Vetiver Capital Management has just joined us. Joshua, welcome to the program. Thank you for finding time to join us on this Monday morning. So let's have you wade into these headlines and make your pick for some analysis. I know you will want to start with the Twitter ban and, of course, the kind of poor internet connection that is rattling Nigeria at the moment.
Well, I think, okay, so the thing is this. For various reasons, a ban on any kind of social media platform sends the wrongest message. I mean, first of all, it's an indictment on free speech and it's an indictment on our basic human rights. And then second of all, it gives an indication to the international community that we are not a full democracy to a certain extent, because this is a case of a government, a president violating the rules of this social media platform and his tweet being taken down. And then all of a sudden, unilaterally, within 24 hours, they come out and say they are going to ban or they have banned this social media platform from the country. I mean, it's wrong doesn't even begin to cover what it is. It's simply abhorrent and it sends the wrongest message. I mean, obviously the international community has come out to condemn it on several, occasions. But the thing is, again, international investors are looking at all of these things. So any kind of, fintech or new business that's coming up that wants to, attract international investors are going to mark this as, a key risk, as it has always been. Anyways, but this is just a reminder that at any point in time, whatever business you have can literally be ended, by the snap of a finger by the federal government. And so it adds such a huge risk to any kind of investment coming into Nigeria. And not only that, let's look at it from an economic perspective. The truth is that a lot of young people have been using Twitter and other social media platforms as a way to conduct business, as a way to make money, because there are very few opportunities in the country. So you're locking up, another avenue for economic development, for growth, for economic activity, because of some petty nonsense, really. And so this is a very worrying sign that the government itself does not care about economic growth. It does not care about its standing on the international community. It does not care about free speech. And, it has misplaced priorities because, you spoke about banditry and, insecurity. We are facing all those issues and all those challenges. And yet, I don't think at any point, anybody has come out to say anything regarding all the massive killings that have been happening. Yet, the Twitter ban was enacted with a quickness. So I think this is just really a perfect snapshot of where we are as a country, unfortunately. You talk about the fact that activity in the INE window was down a little bit last week. Obviously, we know the struggles that we're currently having with regards to dollar and dollar liquidity and FX liquidity. Obviously, the INE window is a very important aspect for us attracting more dollars into the country, by having a more open market for, buyers and sellers. Now, all of that, again, will still be hampered by the fact that investors will look at Nigeria and be like, do I really want to bring my money into this country when the government really doesn't know, it doesn't know left from right and is happy to ban internet services and to, basically threaten all your ISPs to, block access to one website, under threat of fines and being shut down. I mean, we talk about the fact that MTN was the first to shut down access to Twitter, and that's because they've been burnt by this government several times before in the past. They've been fined severely, in the billions of dollars, and they do not want to fall afoul of this government for any reason whatsoever. even if that means causing inconvenience to their customers. That is a problem. That is an issue, because any international business that sees that will think twice before coming into Nigeria.
Sure.
So how do you want us to grow and develop as an economy? We're supposed to be the biggest economy in Africa. I mean, this is pathetic, really.
You can't blame MTN, Joshua. Once beaten, twice shy. That's it for them. Bosin, you got the rest of the headlines: Ghana, gold, and of course the minimum wage.
Well, I'm not going to talk about Twitter in Ghana. I'm just going to let that pass, because I tried to check throughout. Not a single tweet from Ghana, by the way, either by way of sympathy with us, by way of anything else. So they just try to stay out of this particular mess in Nigeria. So, but again, the gold production last year, we all knew the whole issue around the pandemic and how that impacted outputs for the mining industry. South Africa took a very major hit. We all knew that. The whole massive lockdown in South Africa was different. Ghana had a little bit less of that, but again, it's a global village. So in a manner of speaking, the gold production in Ghana was also, we're seeing the numbers coming through right now. The minimum wage is something that we'll have to translate into it in dollars or whatever, but increasing minimum wage, I think after the elections and all of that, I think it makes some sense within the context of the fact that 2020 was a very brutal year, economically speaking, for everyone, especially developing countries and frontier African economies. So they have to balance it out on the inflation side, on money supply, and a whole lot of things they have to do with on that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Bosin. Ali, any comments on Twitter ban in Nigeria before we move to South African markets?
Well, obviously, I think it's the equivalent of pulling out a gun and shooting yourself in the foot. It's very unfortunate. You have such a young population, so much potential, and for one president to get upset with that, and just shut the whole thing down, doesn't make sense, and it looks very petulant as well, I think. And then one worries, about policy making, that, is policy making being done in the same manner without really thinking the medium and long-term effects of it. So my overarching concern is something that I saw on Twitter from a Nigerian gentleman who said the plan must be now to introduce a Chinese system where basically it's a lockdown system, like you have in China where Twitter's banned. And if that's the case, that's even more worrying. We live in an environment today where our potential is our human capital, it's our people, and we're beyond this phase when I think governments could shut down the social media. Though we've seen it happen a lot around elections in Africa. So overall, I think it's a very poor decision. And my appeal to the government would be reverse it immediately and understand what is this new landscape that you're dealing in, because it's completely new maybe to you, but it's the reality of so many people. You can't just, it's like just saying, like you said, there's so many people who are selling and buying over social media. What have you done to them? You just close them all down. So, I think it's a poor decision. I think, like Joshua said, it's going to affect the perception of the country. And I think, the president's office in Abuja would do well really to get with it and understand that, this is not an option that was available.
Thank you very much.
A quick one, Temple, if you allow me, just a very quick one. You see, again, when you look at the whole Twitter issue in Uganda during the elections in Uganda just a few months ago, then you look at the elections in Tanzania, look, African leaders need to begin to see democracy as a voice of the people. And African leaders needed to control the various Ministry of Communication and Ministry of Information, in which information usually is a one-way traffic. The government tells you exactly what they want you to know or what they want to say, and that's the end. You go home and watch television. the right of reply was very limited to a few radio stations, a few TV stations, on the pages of newspapers. Yeah. Now, social media has democratized what you call information, as it were, all over the world. So African leaders will need to know that the access that people or the common man has to information means that they have to raise the game on the quality of democratic practices and the quality of life they produce. If you don't deliver that, the cacophony of voices that will come falling down on you, raining down on you, will be so enormous. So the days of just seeing and everybody just go away because you have a minister of information or you've got a public information official or media aide to president or ministers or whatever, those days are gone. The right of reply or the right of response has been democratized all over the world with social media. So that means we should send a message to all African leaders that, look, if you don't raise the quality of governance, if you don't raise the quality of performance and everything and conversation, look, you're going to have the whole hailstone of social media, not just from within your country, but from everywhere around the world coming down on you. The diaspora now has a strong voice using the social media. So you can't block out the diaspora in those days. They can only make phone calls. Now they have access to everything, and they will keep up the pressure on you. So we should see this as a lesson for democracy and good governance in Africa when you talk to social media.
Thank you very much for those additions there, Bosin. Thanks a great deal. Moving on now to the Southern African markets, where you have MTN looking to bid for Ethiopia license if mobile money is included this time, says CEO Ralph Mopita. There, heritage dispute around Amazon's South Africa 15 hectares Africa's headquarters. Joburg seeks 3.5 billion rands for gas solar batteries for 50 megawatts by September this year. Rand is up 1% week on week, positive by 9% on the US dollar year to date as the best performer. Zimbabwe to citizens says don't panic as vaccine shortage kicks in at this point. We'll start with you again, Ali, and then get your thoughts, Joshua, on the MTN story looking to buy or bid for license in Ethiopia.
So let me start with that, and Joshua can add to it. MTN, of course, I mean, the Ethiopians described these licenses as the last Coca-Colas in the desert, by the way, which I thought was quite amusing. MTN came in substantially below the license bid that Safaricom's consortium put in, and the Ethiopian government rejected it, and apparently, according to the latest report, are saying that they're going to allow people to re-tender. MTN CEO, in comments I read, said essentially, we're not interested unless that mobile money license is also included. The Ethiopian government have maintained that it won't be, although I saw Abiy Ahmed say, he expected that license to be forthcoming within 12 months. But obviously, unless it's in writing, I think MTN, given its experience that you described in Nigeria, of course, and in Iran, will be very reluctant to get themselves in a scenario where they're waiting on a promise. So it'll be interesting to see what comes forth. I was also looking at the Ethiopian budget. I mean, they've been spending a great deal of money on the military, and obviously they're short of cash. So they would be keen to get this second license allocated and to receive the money they received, over $800 million from the Safaricom consortium apparently last week. If I can then just jump to the Rand, we've spoken about this a few times. You will recall that it absolutely collapsed, when the pandemic first hit. It's now rallied so sharply. I think it's rallied about 45% from those lows that we saw. And it's been the best performing emerging market currency this year. Real had a good run last week and could start playing catch up. But essentially, the Rand has been a significant outperformer. The question is, when it starts putting pressure on South African exports, what is the comfort level for South Africa? These levels we haven't seen for a very long time, and it's still obviously got a lot of momentum to the upside, particularly because of the scenarios in other emerging market currencies. The rupee has had its own issues. The Russian ruble, the sanctions has kept it under pressure. and the Turkish lira, of course, which has just hit record lows every week. So the question is, what is their tolerance level? It will be interesting to find that out.
Very much. Thank you so much, Ali. Joshua, your thoughts on MTN? Mobile money is like the condition at this time for them to be able to participate in the bid for Ethiopian telecom license.
Yeah, but I think the big part there is the mobile money business itself. MTN are betting pretty big on that. They value it as, I think, over $5 billion. They want it to even be a standalone company. They are thinking of spinning it off and IPOing it. So I think that tells you where they see their business model, going forward, the future business model across Africa. I think it makes sense that obviously if they want to enter in the market in Tanzania, that they want that to be a major part of it, because obviously that would, give them a bigger market share and allow them to, have a better jumping off point rather than just coming in and offering, mobile services. They need that money aspect as well, just to, make the business more viable, I think, in that market. So I think it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. And for the ambitions across Africa, it makes more sense to do it that way.
Thank you very much. Bosun, your thoughts on this part before we finish off with the Northern African headlines?
I think I agree with Ali to a point on the rand in South Africa going very strong against the US dollar. That would be good for the financial markets. But again, your exports is going to be a little bit, the dollar comeback is there. So for you to push very strongly against the dollar at this point in time means you've got a whole lot under your belt, by the way. If you don't have it, they don't push the dollar too much, because it could come back and hurt you at some point. So you better make sure you've got your homework done very, very well. If you want to be sure that, yes, we have a currency that is strong for carry trade, then of course you also want to be, it's a little bit, they look at the financial market, the stock market in South Africa went up this morning again because, well, the dollar is good. But then that is a little bit different from the economy in South Africa, which is still battling with the virus. In Zimbabwe, and so I sympathize with them, with the authorities saying, look, don't worry. But again, everybody's queuing up. Now you have a shortage of the vaccine in the country, and they're trying to wrap their head around how do they resolve it? Where do they get extra vaccine right now? Because it looks like vaccine lockdown. Because look at the variants that we're talking about, even in the UK and all of that. So nobody is sure. So nobody wants to give out his own inventory of a vaccine right now because you're not sure what happens next. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Northern African markets headline as we coast home. We'll look at what is going on there. Global Ethical Finance Summit 2021 holds virtually tomorrow, June the 8th and June the 9th. You have summits to focus on sustainable ethical finance, and of course, a couple of other sustainable development goals. Egypt's net FX reserves increased $125 million in May. Tunisia's Panoro Energy first quarter 2021 earnings shows $77.2 million turnover. Your thoughts, Ali, then Bosun.
Just noting the Egyptian number, I mean, the cumulative FX reserves there are $40 billion, and that's pretty, gives you a pretty strong defense. In an emergency, you've got a lot of firepower to deploy, and I think that's an important point. Global Ethical Finance Summit 2021. I mean, there is this tremendous fashion now around ESG, around ethical finance. It's all a good thing, but let me just make this point. If this whole ESG drive means that the big multinationals and investors in oil and gas are not going to make those investments, then what do you think is going to happen to the price of oil and gas? We're going to see huge increases. So it's a little bit of a catch-22. And I think, we've got to move beyond this virtue signaling and say to ourselves, what exactly is going to happen if we do all these things we're virtually signaling about?
Really, thank you so much, Ali. Bosun, your thoughts?
Well, I think I'll give it to the Egyptians. The ethical finance will be okay tomorrow to watch the whole sustainable future discussion, climate change, climate adaptation, biodiversity, various sessions across the various across regions around the world. It's going to be an interesting week ahead. Temple.
Thank you very much, Bosana Mofaye, Executive Editor here at Frontier Africa Reports. Ali Kansachi appreciates your comments and analysis on the show. He joined us from Nairobi, Kenya as the CEO of Rich Frontiers Management. And of course, Joshua Debisi from Vetiver Capital Management. Thanks a great deal for your analysis on the program this morning. This has been our first edition of Frontier Opening Bell this morning. I'm Temple Ashaju. Have yourself a beautiful week ahead. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.